Kia ora koutou katoa. The Gospel text for today, Luke 13, 31 to 35, contrasts a fox and a hen. The fox is Herod Antipas, the Tetrarch of Galilee, a regional power broker. He's the son of the so-called Herod the Great, the wicked king of the well-known Christmas stories. Herod Antipas too has gained some notoriety. It is he who imprisoned and then had John the Baptist beheaded. Herod Antipas's motive for seeking to kill Jesus in this text today is not stated, but it can be reasonably inferred that, like John, Jesus disapproved of Herod's evil acts and was public about his disapproval. "Go tell that fox for me," says verse 32. And it's a scathing analysis of Herod's character and actions. The fox is a creature that is not only portrayed correctly as a wily predator, but also incorrectly as a killer set on wanton destruction, namely killing for the fun of it. Luke, the author of this text, then describes briefly Jesus' ministry and work of healing and wholeness, and that this work would culminate in Jerusalem, where, incidentally, he would meet the fox. Luke then, in verse 34, proceeds to have Jesus lift his voice in lament over Jerusalem and uses the metaphor of the hen for Jesus, borrowing the bird imagery from Psalm 91. This juxtaposition of the fox and the hen thus forms a lesson about power and its true nature. Herod, like some world political leaders of our times, and there's a number to choose from, sees his subjects alternately as threats to be neutralized or punished, or just as prey for exploitation, and thus proves to be only interested in his own welfare. It is the self-serving nature of Herod's understanding of power that is being critiqued here. The power of leadership should always be to serve the common good. The way of the fox is contrasted with the way of the hen, Jesus' motherly care of the people of Jerusalem, even though this care would make him vulnerable. Indeed, it would end his life. It is the image of the protective mother, showing the deepest love and care to her chicks, that tells Luke's listeners, including us, that there is a different way of understanding power. And it's a way that's not about self-aggrandizement and self-service. Note with the hen metaphor, Jesus is not only wanting to embrace and protect his followers in Jerusalem. His embrace and protection extend to all, including those who would later cry, "Crucify him." So I would include in that brace his critics, detractors, and enemies, even foxes. For the hen metaphor is in essence a family metaphor which the Jesus movement later extended to refer to the whole of humanity as one family. The whole of humanity would be brothers and sisters to each other, caring, loyal, and protective of one another. All of humanity is one nation, one tribe, one whānau, a reality where we are fundamentally connected to each other, inclusive of diversity and difference, of the challenged and the challenging, of all great and small. Herod and Jesus will eventually meet, as I said, in person in Jerusalem. And that encounter, unique also to Luke, replays this comparison of two models of leadership and power. Herod, in this version, will be the one responsible for dressing Jesus in royal apparel, an intended form of mockery. Mockery and derision in the mouths of the corrupt powerful, the foxes, serve mostly to show their own unfitness to wield authority. The hen, on the other hand, is a symbol of those whose work is fulfilled not in their own protection, let alone pursuit of their own self-interest, but in the healing and nourishing of the hen's children. Holiness, small gods and angels, to borrow from Mary Oliver, our second reading today, are all around. Or for a pantheist like me, Godding is all around. God is all around, if sometimes hard to see. Is justice all around? Is where justice is, so is God. Or where God is, so is justice. I think so. I think how we understand justice is grounded in how we understand God. One way of understanding the relationship of God and justice is that the former is a benevolent, transcendent sovereign who knows what's best, who has fixed markers of right and wrong, written down and enforced. The enforcement, or consequences if you like, if not now, will be in a form of afterlife. In this understanding of God and justice, the task of the believer is to proclaim the sovereign's will, interpret it for our time, and seek to do it. That is, by acting justly and righting injustice. I think one of the tasks of a community such as ours at St. Luke's is to think deeply about the ideal and vision of justice. Most of the time we use that J word, we're talking about righting injustices. Injustices often entrenched by prejudice and governing power over the centuries. Like the injustices that have arisen and become systematized by assuming that males should be privileged in relation to females, or adults to children, or heterosexual to homosexual, or one race, culture, or class to another. The task of identifying and righting such injustices goes on and on, sometimes making progress, sometimes there's restitution, and sometimes in some places regressing. And some of this work of righting injustices can be complicated. Sometimes the vision for justice means resources are allocated or reallocated in such a way that some people get more based on their needs than others. For participation and enjoyment for everyone is the goal. Whilst I don't understand God or justice in terms of a benevolent heavenly sovereign, it needs to be said that much good has been done by some of those who do. By interpreting the Bible, especially in reference to the prophets and Gospels, believers have advocated and worked for social justice, equal rights, the alleviation of poverty, and so on. My problem with this benevolent, transcendent, sovereign understanding of God is that it's prefaced on the metaphor of absolute male monarchy, hence the language like king and lord, with its hierarchies and paternalism, which we in turn as a society or church, especially in the past, have replicated. The metaphor of monarchy carries within it the notion that some of us are better, more worthy than others. And then we in turn create systems to entrench this notion and create injustices. However, there are other ways, other metaphors of understanding God and justice. Instead of using the word God, we can use the word the deep. This is a metaphor that invites us to ponder what is not so apparent, what's not on the surface. It also counters the notion of God being up, looking down. The nature of the deep is a goodness that permeates all life and connects all. This goodness, holiness, bubbles up on the surface and sometimes, serendipitously, oftentimes right in front of us or just around the corner. In the deep, we are all connected. It's a primal connection that deconstructs the tribalistic walls and allegiances we think are necessary and desirable in order to protect us. In this deep goddishness, where we all belong and are loved, the armor we have acquired and cultivate to survive is a hindrance rather than a help. To understand this connectivity of the deep, Paul's body metaphor, 1 Corinthians 12, is helpful. Taken to understand all humanity, the body metaphor reminds us that though we have obvious differences like age, gender, race, class, we also have obvious similarities. And like with the human body, those similarities, think of blood, veins, arteries, connect us. What is good or painful for one part of the body is good and painful to the whole. The Jesus movement's understanding of family, where we are all siblings to each other with God being the only parent, is also helpful in moving our thinkings and actions away from the group or nationalism mindset that so besets and dogs our world. The truth of the deep, beneath the barriers of our self-interest, is that we are all connected. To hurt one is to hurt all. To lift up one is to lift up all. Just like in functional families. Some things, especially things of the deep, things of God, are hard to find language for. The word connection that I'm using points to the indiscriminate depth permeating us all life, all matter, whether we wish it to or not, and in this sense relating us and reminding us that it is at least one thing that makes us all the same. But like love, the deep is not passive. It is slowly working towards a state of harmony between all, where great and small, strong and weak, whilst remaining in large part great, small, strong and weak, receive what they need, contribute what they can, and don't become bloated with self-importance, wealth or privilege, as if these things are due to their specialness, chosenness, and a reason why they should deprive others of the same. Instead, the balance or harmony of the deep is like that of a body, each part joined, necessary and interdependent, or like that of an ecosystem, where streams, soil, plants, insects, birds have over time developed an interdependence, a reliance on the existence of the other. So when one human thinks in their ignorance or arrogance that they are self-made, disregarding so much the body or family or ecosystem has given them, and disregarding so much of the obligation and need to aid others, they inculcate an imbalance, a discordance, out of which in time injustice and other evils can arise, to hurt and damage. It is such imbalances and injustices that the life-giving ways and movements of the deep seek to rectify. That is, to recreate mutual right relation between all, without making new injustices. At the start of our liturgy today, there are formal and traditional words introducing the season of Lent. Although, as with many things in our liturgies, I've changed out the language. The words of metaphor kingdom of God is exchanged for a commonwealth shaped by justice and grace. Commonwealth is a traditional English term for a political community founded for the common good. And to supplement, give body to commonwealth, I've added justice and grace. And the understanding of God as the deep, the movements of justice and grace walk hand in hand as one. Blessings to you this week.